all of that. So I'm Rachel Lindteigen, and I don't expect you to learn how to say or spell that last name. Used to be Gordon, was much easier. So I focus on and specialize in search engine optimization and content marketing, blogging, helping you figure out how to connect with your ideal customer, how to get them to your website to gain visibility online, all of that. So, like we were talking about, Heather and I were talking about for a minute, I actually have a background in journalism. I went to the Cronkite School at ASU, which is broadcast journalism school, but I've been in marketing for about 20 years. I'm familiar with TPT products because I'm old, but I'm also the mom of an elementary kid because I had a career before I had a family. So I have a son who is now a rising fifth grader. And his first and second grade teachers in particular used a ton of worksheets. So lots of very cute characters for ELA and for math every night. Now we're older, so it's all on Zern and Chromebooks and all of that. But I remember the worksheets, the amount of paper that came home in lower elementary ages was insane. So what I wanted to talk to you about, he said he did a survey to see what you were most interested in, and that the group really wanted to learn about keywords. So I've got some notes here. I'm going to go through and do a training. We'll talk about keywords. And then I told him, because things are changing so much, I told him I wanted to also really bring in a little bit of information for you about visibility, online visibility, AI search, and how that's impacting us. So I'm just curious where your familiarity is at this point with ChatGPT or Google AI overviews or AI mode. Are you familiar with those? Have you seen them, used them, played around with them yet?
I use Chat GPT.
Okay.
That's the only one that I heard of that you mentioned.
Okay.
And I use
Yeah,
ChatGPT and I do use it quite a bit.
Okay.
But I haven't heard of the other two.
yeah, I haven't heard the other two.
Okay. So AI overviews is just at the top of the Google search results. If you go in and you type in like a question, it'll give you an answer at the top of the page. That's the AI overviews, and that's been around about a year. Not everybody has it. They're still rolling it out. AI mode is an expansion on that, where they're actually adding in an entire tab in the Google search results page that's all AI generated. So if you're curious, I'm happy to do a screen share and show you what those look like if you want to see them when we get into that section, just so you kind of understand. What we want to look at from a business standpoint is being visible, not only on Google, but now in ChatGPT, AI overviews, AI mode, etc., because consumer behavior is shifting and people are starting to search using AI tools rather than just in Google. So we need to be, yay, we need to be more places. We need to do more. Anyone ever feel like you can't keep up because there's always something? Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about keywords real quick. I want to start with why people get keywords wrong, the most common mistakes that I see that impact you, and then how to choose them the right way. So I've got three main teaching points there, and then we'll talk about what we do for AI search visibility. So what I see from a keyword standpoint is that people generally choose keywords that are too big to rank for, especially as small business owners, because you and I have small websites that are not super authoritative in Google's eyes. So for me, if I'm writing a blog post on how to choose a keyword for your blog post, I can tell you right now, every SEO tool has a blog post on how to choose a keyword for your blog post. And they are more authoritative sites than I am. So I'm not going to show up because in Google's eyes, I don't deserve to be the one that they send the traffic to for that type query. So it's going to be similar for you. What I want you to think about when you're looking at keywords, I want you to go to Google and I want you to use what's called an incognito browser window. That's one that does not have your personalization impacting it. So if you go to your regular Chrome tab and you start searching, it's going to show you sites you've gone to. You've probably gone to your website, which means they're more likely to show your website higher in the search results for you than they would for someone who's not familiar with you. So we're going to want to open a new Chrome tab, and we're going to want to make sure that it's an incognito browser. So rather than having the white background, it's going to have a black background at the top. That's going to be really important because that removes the personalization. So from there, when you're kind of brainstorming, you're trying to decide, is this the right keyword? Is that the right keyword? I want you to go over there and I want you to put that keyword in, and I want you to see who shows up on page 1. More importantly, who shows up at the top of page 1. So if you're putting in, let's say, abacus worksheet, there's a good chance you're probably not showing up in position 1, because that's probably, and I don't know because that's niche, so it's possible that you may actually be able to. But let's say first grade ELA worksheet, or let's just say ELA worksheet. Now, ELA worksheet is very broad, it's very generic. We don't necessarily know what grade level, all of that. But if I put in like ELA worksheet, there's a good chance maybe Lakeshore Learning, maybe somebody's Amazon book, maybe the TPT site itself. That's probably going to be too broad. It's probably going to be too big of a keyword. So it's probably not going to be one that our small websites will rank for. But if we get further down the sales funnel, we get more specific, we use a keyword that has multiple words with it. So rather than ELA worksheet, then maybe we go first grade ELA worksheet, and maybe we add in, I'm trying to think, what do they do in first grade? Phonics, like specific phonics, first grade ELA worksheet PH, whatever the phonic is for PH. We get more specific. Now we may have a better chance of ranking. And the thing that's great here is not only do we potentially have a better chance of ranking, the person who's searching that much more specific is the person who has more of an intention to purchase because they really know what they're looking for. So I'm going to walk through this real quick using shoes, because I think tennis shoes are a really easy way to understand this. I was trying to pull a few examples that would be worksheets that would be relevant, but let's just talk shoes. So the person who's first searching, let's say that I am a shoe website, and when I worked in the corporate world, I had several big shoe brands that I worked with, and we would look at it and be like, shoes, there's 1 to 3 million searches a month. Cool. Okay. If I could rank position number 1 on Google for shoes, it gets like 37% of the traffic, 350,000 searches a month for the word shoes. Doesn't that seem like that would be life-changing? Like 350,000 searches a month for one keyword? Sign me up. Sounds great. However, the person searching shoes has no idea what they're looking for. You don't know what they're looking for. So what we want to think about here also is consumer intent. What is it that they're looking for? What information do they want when they're searching with that keyword? So we want to get more specific. So now rather than shoes, maybe we look at women's shoes. Maybe we go as far as women's running shoes. Maybe we go even further and we go women's A6 gel Kayano, which was my running shoe for many years. So we get more specific. We go further down the sales funnel. Each time that we get more specific, we're going to see the search volume drop. So rather than having 1 million searches a month, we might only have 10,000 by the time we get to A6 gel Kayano. But if we can rank near the top of page 1 for the term that our customer is searching for when they are looking to convert, we're going to have a better chance of being the one that gets the traffic, that gets the visit. And if we've really paid attention to the consumer intent and what they're looking for with the word, and we've made sure that we've matched it with our website content, then we have a better chance of converting. So that's the first one we want to talk about, is just make sure you're really thinking about what keyword you're choosing, and that you're choosing one that your site has a really good chance of ranking for. We're going to Google, we're looking, we're double checking. What you want to see is, are the sites that are ranking on page 1 similar to me? Are they other small businesses? If they are, you're probably on a good track. But if they're really big, you need to keep looking for a different keyword. So that's one of the first ways that you can make sure that you choose a keyword that you have a better chance of ranking for. I teach a whole course on this where we go much further in detail, but this will help you at least make sure that you're not making the mistake of choosing the keywords you can't rank for, because that is the number one mistake I see people use or see people make over and over and over again. The next issue that I see is we choose the words that we use, but maybe they're not the terms that our ideal customer searches for. So it's going to be very important, especially with education products. If we're trying to connect with other teachers, we want to make sure that we're using the type words that they're using. We want to speak in their language. So when I was in the corporate world, I worked for an ad agency that was based in Scottsdale, or I ran the Scottsdale office, oversaw the team there. We were actually based in Manhattan. We worked with large e-commerce brands. I had one client in particular that was based in the UK, but they were trying to come into the US market and they wanted to expand their digital presence, their e-commerce presence in the US. And I had to end up doing a whole study for them and helping them understand that if they wanted to rank in the US market for the terms that US customers used, they had to use them on their website as well. So before we started working together, they were using the British terminology. Sweaters were jumpers, pants were trousers, tennis shoes were plimsolls. And we had to go through all of this. And I finally said, and they wanted to stay so true to their British heritage. And I get it, but American consumers don't use that. I had another client, they were a large manufacturer, large designer handbags. Everybody knows them. Everybody's probably owned one at some point in time. They were kind of out of style for now, for the last 5 or 10 years. And now I'm seeing them everywhere again. And I'm like, cool, I've got a bunch of vintage ones in my closet I'm going to pull back out. They had men's bags, but rather than offering briefcases, they sold business bags. Do you know anyone in this world who carries a business bag versus a briefcase? So that was another situation where we had to talk about use the term. The final one was, actually that one I can say. The final one was the North Face. So the North Face had day packs, not backpacks, on their website. They sold day packs because theirs were used for hiking and backpacking and all of this, except they actually sold more as backpacks for kids to carry to school and people to commute and all of that. So we ultimately were able to show them the difference in the search volume. So what I want you to think about and take away from this is, if I'm using a word, it's good to go use a keyword research tool just to take a look at the difference in the search volume. Sometimes you'll find big differences. I'm going to pull my sticky note I just put away, and I do exactly what I'm teaching you. So this is my little sticky note. I've been renaming my podcast this week because I want to target some different keywords. See all those little words on there? That's me trying to decide what to call the podcast. So looking at things like online visibility, there's 390 searches a month. Not a whole lot. Website traffic, 8,100. Marketing, 200,000. SEO, 200,000. Now, the way we rank on a podcast app is very different from Google. On a podcast app, I can rank for the biggest keywords I want to go after, the ones I can't rank for on Google. So my podcast got renamed to Simple Marketing and SEO. Those 200,000 keywords, plus then with online marketing as the third term in it. So you want to look at that and pay attention to the search volume. You can use any keyword research tool you want to find the search volume, but it'll help you understand, am I choosing a keyword that somebody is using? Because if you're choosing a keyword that no one's using, you're probably going to rank at the top of Google without much trouble. However, nobody's ever going to find you because nobody's searching that word. So the perfect keyword for you is always going to be the one with the highest search volume that you have the best chance of ranking for. And that's really important. It's a caveat. It's the highest search volume that you have a chance of ranking for. Because if you go for those ones, like normally for my blog, I would never go for just straight on SEO or straight on marketing, but I can with my podcast because podcast apps work different. And my podcast actually ranks really, really well. So I'm going after more competitive stuff there. So your keyword strategy is different depending on where you are, if you're on a podcast versus on Google. The third mistake that I see, or the third problem, is that we use the keywords in the wrong places or we don't follow Google's rules. So there are very specific places that Google looks for information on your site. The reason SEO is important is you're optimizing your content. You're making it easier for the search engine to understand the content so that they get to like you, know you, trust you, and are more likely to show you or share your website with people. What you have to remember, Google in particular, Google is a business. They make their money by selling ads. The reason that they can keep selling ads is because everybody uses Google. So if Google doesn't protect their search results and keep them good, reliable, quick websites, the right content, people are going to use other browsers. We're seeing this more now than we have in the past decade because now people are starting to search with ChatGPT, they're searching on Perplexity, they're going straight to AI. So now Google has more competition. Google actually took a bit of a tumble for the first time in 10 or 12 years. At the end of last year, Q4, their search share dropped. Now, it dropped to like 88%. So it didn't drop a ton, but there's more competition today. It was the first time in, I don't remember if it was 10 or 12 years, but it was the first time that they had gone down below the 90% mark and they had gone negative at all. So what we really want to understand is that when we're doing SEO, it's not something extra. It's not something we add on at the end. It's actually something that we want to do from the beginning and have it as our foundation. When we're creating content, do you blog on your websites? Do you have blogs and stuff? Okay. When we're creating content, we actually, the way I teach my students to do it is to start with their concept and their keyword before ever writing a blog post. We don't write from an SEO standpoint. We don't write a certain word count. We don't write using, we're going to use this keyword 6 times. We need this keyword density score, none of that. And I know if you're trying to learn SEO on your own, you're hearing people tell you that there's a perfect keyword density score, there's a perfect length for your blog post, all of that. I'm going to tell you that's not true. That's people who don't really understand. They don't know what they're talking about. And so they've heard something somewhere and they're repeating it. Google has come as far as to say there is no perfect length. There is no target keyword density score. What Google wants you to do, and those are direct quotes from Danny Sullivan. Danny used to be my editor at Search Engine Land when I wrote at Search Engine Land. He's now the head of search, the search liaison for Google. If Danny Sullivan says it, you can believe it. If you find old information that says it's from Matt Cutts, Matt had the job before Danny, you can believe Matt Cutts. Make sure it's still updated because Matt hasn't had that role for a few years. We want to be very careful where we get our information from because there's a lot of incorrect information out there. But what you want to do when you're creating content is make sure that you're using SEO as your foundation. You're choosing keywords that you have a good chance of ranking for. Any of you ever create a blog post and feel like nobody ever saw it? Okay. You're not alone. 90% of all the search traffic out there, or all the websites out there, all the website pages, 90% of them get a big old goose egg from Google. They get no traffic. And it's because of the things we've talked about tonight. They're using the wrong keywords. They're putting them in the wrong places. They're not doing SEO at all because they think it's something you do after the fact. They don't understand that it's actually the foundation of everything that you do. That's why so many of them, 90% get a big fat 0. So once you understand how all this works, you're not competing against every other website. you're competing against the 10% of people who understand how this works and are getting traffic. So it's really not as hard once you understand how to do it. You generally have a nice competitive advantage because now you know what's going on, you know how to do it, you can start getting more traffic. So if you don't know what the rules are for Google, like for keyword use, we want to make sure that we use unique keywords on each page. One keyword is going to be your core, your primary keyword, and you're going to use that in all the places Google is going to look for information about your page. They're going to look in very specific places. They're going to look at your title tag. I have a freebie. Let me grab the link and I'll put it in the chat if that's okay. That way you can grab that and you don't have to worry about writing all this down. I meant to have that page pulled up and then the kids wanted to swim and it threw me. So this one right here, this way you don't have to write all of this down. But let me put this in the chat for you. This is going to be the landing page to get the beginner's guide to SEO. That's going to walk you through it, and it's going to give you a checklist on the last page that you can print off and use to make sure that you've done everything right. You're going to put your keyword in your title tag and your meta description. You're going to put it in your URL. You're going to put it in your blog post title. You're going to put it in your header tags. Your header tags are just the bigger font that breaks up the paragraphs on your page. You're going to put it in your image file name, potentially in your image alt text. So there's certain places that Google's going to look. You're going to use the same keyword in each of those places because that helps Google understand what that page is about. Now I promised we'd talk about AI search visibility. So let's talk about how do you show up as a resource in ChatGPT or in Perplexity, or how do you get mentioned in the AI overviews? Now let's go into kind of ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI overviews. This is where things are going. So if you want to future-proof your business, this is really what you need to look at next. And the way that, like what we're seeing, what we're understanding, because it's still relatively new, but what we're seeing is that your core foundation, your good, strong SEO foundation on your website is incredibly important to being included in AI search results because the AI engines search slightly differently. And we can talk about how they search because they don't go looking for the keywords the way that Google does. They actually look more for phrase match. They're looking for what they think the answer is going to be, which is also why sometimes ChatGPT and other ones hallucinate and they make stuff up because they think that's what the right answer is. Did anyone ever see the examples of like when ChatGPT told you that if you just used glue, your cheese wouldn't fall off your pizza? Yeah. I think it might have been it may have been early Google AI overviews. It was awesome. How do I keep my cheese from sliding off my pizza? Well, just use glue. Yeah. So AI is not always great, but it's getting better. It's improving. If we want to be potentially included in there, have people find us as a resource in those AI tools, we need to first make sure our websites follow SEO best practices. So we need to do that. We need to create content because each time we create a blog post that is optimized, that's targeting a keyword that we have a good chance of ranking for, that's helpful to our ideal customer, it's one more chance for somebody to find us on Google or in AI because the AI search engines crawl the web. They crawl your content just the same. They index everything just the same. Now, AI specifically, like I said, it's not looking for keywords. It's looking more for phrases. So from an AI standpoint, it's important to make sure that we're also formatting for AI. So we want to focus on the questions that our ideal customer would be asking. With AI, it's good to focus on one question at a time. Keep it conversational. Use those questions and terms and related terms. I teach all of this, like how to do it in my course. But what you want to do is use those related terms in your header tags, your big text that separate your content. Now, the other thing we want to look at from an AI standpoint is formatting. So we want to make sure that we have short paragraphs. Even short sentences can help. We want to make sure we have white space. Your content needs to be skimmable because the AI bots are skimming everything And so that becomes very important. It's more about formatting and phrases for AI than keywords. AI is not looking for your keywords, Google is. But following SEO best practices will help increase your chances of being seen and being a resource in the AI search. I have seen people I have a client I've worked with for years, they're getting referring traffic from ChatGPT because if people go in and search and ask, they're a Montessori preschool. If somebody goes in and asks, hey, what's a good Montessori preschool in their town? It will tell them and 2 or 3 others. And then if you ask which one is the best, it'll go through and it'll kind of analyze and it'll say, well, based on consumer reviews, this one is the best. It's based on their ratings and their reviews, and it's been around for 35 years and it's family owned, and you should check this one out, and here's their phone number. So we have to have that strong foundation in order to show up there.